Okay, so the first question we had was about boundaries. It seems like this is a big theme for humanity, specifically the empaths, the healers, the teachers, the guides. How can we actually start implementing or taking action within having proper boundaries instead of just talking about it, actually doing it?
We have to be less departmentalizing about things instead of saying we are empaths and we have this challenge. All humanity has this challenge. Whether you are trying to be good or locked in your challenges or not awake, totally awake, the boundary thing is a challenge because we are all one.
Yeah.
So whether you see that connection as a positive or a negative, that you don't want to be part of a group and you look down on a particular connection that you may have, the point is, because we are all one, the idea of boundaries is challenging. So if you were to look at what resonates in a moment, we should look closer at why we dismiss an instinctual feeling rather than boundaries as such. It's more about needing to be in tune with your minute by minute reporting back to yourself on the inside. Obviously, the older you are, the longer your neural pathways have been letting people in that shouldn't be let in. So it is harder to undo the physical neuro pathways. That's why we take entheogenic plants. So it's easier to recognize where something has been laid in place, where it needs to be adjusted. Acceptance is also a good idea. If something is the way it is, instead of resisting something, if we recognize that something is the way it is, we tend to move out of the reactive phase and we can see things more clearly. Then instead of using an older term like boundaries, rather to use the understanding that we now would like it to be different than it was. We've moved past where that served us, and now it no longer does. Example, in the past, you may have allowed a lot of people to take time and space from you, and that no longer serves you. It served you then. You don't begrudge it. You don't wish it were different then. It was what it was because it needed to be that. And you listened to an instinct that told you at the time that it was necessary and beneficial, and it was, even if it was just to point to see an acceleration of the evolution where you no longer need that thing to be in your space. You need several iterations that give you the feedback of no before the brain goes, let's change.
Yes. Okay, but you're saying there's aspects of ourselves that we maybe ignore as well. We don't validate.
We don't hear it as well because we're busy resisting something with an giving an emotion too much time, and we're moving too fast, so we don't have time to check in. Driving somewhere too fast, trying to focus on not dying rather than being in a tranquil space of reflection more often. You just don't hear it, but you know.
Yes. Okay, anything else about boundaries? So you're saying it's just something that it might have served us in the past, but it's not serving us anymore. So now we say
Definitely.
no, and then we kind of move on from that.
Don't celebrate it too much. Just do it and move on. Other things are coming.
What does that mean? Other things are coming.
There's so many more things that we are evolving into that require way more energy than congratulating ourselves on putting up boundaries.
Yeah.
Just do the thing and move on. It's elementary now. What's happening now is leap of faith into spaces of what could be termed previously as just a dream that may never or couldn't, all of those sort of things. There's a huge societal anti campaigning that we have to work against, and that requires things like self belief and faith, and those in the self and the capacity for manifestation. And those things in the next cycle will also become elementary. But right now, because they are very challenging, they will require a lot of effort. So just put your boundaries down and move on.
Okay, but it still seems like people are getting bled dry and still not being able to say no. Is there any other practical steps as to how people might move past?
Just ask yourself in the moment, how do I feel about this really? Do I really want to do this? If it's not an absolute, I cannot wait to do this thing. Oh, this is joyous XYZ, if it doesn't bring you joy, and if in doubt, throw it out. Just hurry up and move on.
What about if it's your job and your family depend on the salary, for instance?
Making steps towards living a more joyous existence may take time,
Mm-hmm.
but if you are moving on it earnestly, not messing around, making excuses, and actually properly progressing in the path, you will get there. And everyone around you, family, dependent, etc., will benefit from it in the end.
Okay. So it's just about putting one foot in front of the other foot.
And being honest with yourself, like you will not be able to deceive yourself going forward.
Yes.
You'll feel very uncomfortable, and if you don't properly look at that and address it, you will be consumed.
Yes. Well, I think going into this kind of 2023, these things that don't serve us anymore are just going to somehow leave our lives if we don't leave it in the first place. So it better be us preparing for it and doing it ourselves instead of the universe just taking it away from us.
There is no one to take anything away from you. There's only all the aspects of yourself orchestrated to keep giving you what you are emitting. If you are putting out the frequency that you enjoy the suffering of not achieving your dreams, you will continue to have that. At this point in time, the energy is conducive to taking a leap. And if you take a leap but hold on, you will have to do both. And that is very challenging and comes with extra side cars that you don't necessarily need. You don't have to do it like that, but you can. It's a definitely a new experience going forward and can only really be revealed as you put steps down. You have to remain honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else about that?
Just enjoy.
Yes. It does seem like a lot of information coming from all my other sessions is also we need to play more and laugh more and dance more and return to the kind of childlike state.
Hence the taking a leap of faith against what we've been programmed to not believe is valuable, as I said. If you play more, how do you equate that to survival in this world? It's hard to tell someone who's in a state of fear that they must laugh more or play more when they've only seen evidence of that being a time waster.
Mm.
And it's also a challenge, let's say, for those who are between fear and moments of understanding, that you have to convince yourself in the moment that this is going to get you to where you need to be before you lose it and go back into fear. So in moments of clarity, you have to put reminders for yourself that that is the right way to go, no matter who is trying to bring you down, even if it's yourself most of the time.
Yes. You know, one of my favorite spiritual teachers says it should be 80% play, 20% work, because play is the frequency of allowance and work is the frequency of resistance. So we should be playing more than we are working.
Agreed on the frequency of allowing. That's
Mm.
when the manifestation, that's where the reflection, that's how you listen to yourself, where it guides you and gives you the answers. If you're in that space where you're not worrying about the future or the past,
Mm.
you play in the present, that's when your answers will come.
That's where everything will come.
Mm.
Okay, can you maybe talk about self-love? Why is it such a struggle for us? It seems to be easy to love our animals or our children or others, but it's not ourselves. Can you maybe talk about that?
We judge ourselves based on what we expect the other person may wish us to be.
Mm.
And most of the time, that isn't happening. Most of the time, someone is not even thinking XYZ. We're projecting what might be a failure on our part onto someone's thought.
Mm.
And then we take that as reality without even checking if that's what they're thinking. So, to stop doing that, then if they are thinking that, just leave. And then affirmations again for the self on very basic levels is a good way to start. Thank your ankles, your knees, your neck, your teeth. In a very basic way, the old attitude of gratitude. If you just thank the body for being here, it's a good foundation for developing what the brain can understand as a self worth. This body is such a marvel that it deserves to be here.
Mm.
These years of the architecture of this body, what a marvel it is, and you occupy one. And most of the time, you occupy one that's pretty fantastic. Therefore, if you like to think in that way and it helps you that you earned a body, then there's really nothing else that you can say to give yourself worth. The body is an absolute marvel, and you have one.
Mm.
Start with that.
Mm. Are there any other practical steps we can do to practice better self-love?
Try to look at undoing your negative self talk.
Mm.
If you start from a clean slate, you can indoctrinate yourself with, look how beautiful this or that about yourself is, and move into, look what I can do, look how I create. Try not to go too much into what I do for others, as it's a danger zone if you're not well versed. But if you find yourself trying to speak against yourself or undo things that could be viewed as positive, but you automatically view them as negative, you're most likely speaking someone else's words, perhaps a parent or a partner or a friend who has spoken down to you. And if it happened in the first 7 years of your life, it's become your programming.
Mm.
So a good idea is to reparent yourself. If you're in a space of doing the work, you should have enough capacity to be able to separate yourself from yourself and parent yourself and then look back at yourself receiving the love from a caring parent and reprogram yourself. One should always try and reprogram oneself anyway.
But how does one then physically reparent this self? How does that work practically?
Asking questions. What would I do in this situation? Is it healthier if I do X, Y, or Z? Or is it better that I let it go? What happens in each scenario? If I decide to say yes, how would I feel? If I say no, how do I feel? Check in with how you feel all the time. Ask yourself, really, really, really. It helps also if you look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself a question. Is this really the best thing? Or why am I doing this? Or what's really happening here? Or are you sure? Really? Again, you need to be honest with yourself. Then you'll find that there's a residual programming you weren't even aware of. Then, if it's a deep one, like I always mess things up, or I always hurt people, something that's an absolute, then you need to very basically and manually reprogram yourself with words. If you know that you did something wrong in the past, but it's not who you are now, you have to say, I was only 10 years old. I didn't know better. I know better now. I hurt someone and I felt bad and I won't do it again. I was only, example, acting from a space of I only knew this, I only knew that, and you're not that person anymore. So sometimes you're actually needing to forgive yourself for something, and that tends to be the basis for why you are berating yourself. You did that thing, you didn't know better, you know better now. You were hurting at the time, you were acting from what you knew, and now you're not. And I always try to make people feel better, or I always do the right thing. Whatever it is that you wish that you were, I am someone who XYZ. And say it again and again and again, looking in the mirror and connect with yourself.
Do we have to feel some kind of emotion when we do that as well, when we're kind of talking to ourselves in the mirror?
Most people feel embarrassed.
Probably in the beginning, right?
Yeah, but when you look at yourself and ask yourself a question, you will know if you're talking shit or not. That's the thing. If you properly check in with yourself and you're honest with yourself, if you feel an emotion and it helps you, great. It's more like a resonance you're looking for. Emotions are there if you can't properly just check in and resonate and know. An emotion will assist you to know. But if you can just know, and sometimes just by looking at yourself in the mirror, in your eyes, staring for a long time, even not saying anything, that is another dimension.
Right. Okay, can you please talk about perfectionism? It seems like people still think it's a virtue, but of course, it's actually just a myth. It's basically just a 10-ton shield that's masking shame at the end of the day. Can you maybe talk about how we can overcome this?
Try doing a lot of things that you know that you're going to be bad at and experience getting it very wrong
Yeah.
a lot, and learn acceptance in the moment. That's a good way to get comfortable with not being a perfectionist. Recognizing perfectionism as not a virtue, as you said, is a good idea, but a lot of people still won't accept that. They will low key still wish they would be seen as a perfectionist, but what they really want to be seen as someone who is good at a thing, and so good they will always give the most amount of effort, the best of a thing, the highest and the widest. It's a martyr program and a seeking for a validation which wasn't received in the youth. So if we do this thing a lot and we're really good at it, then we have a virtue to be admired, loved, or valued. If you're not a perfectionist, you as a perfectionist, classify yourself as someone who is not capable and therefore not worthy of being loved. Because what else is there besides your effort? It's a very one dimensional program. It's a very tricky one, though, like a thorn with multiple hooks, because it is the cover for the one thing that humans want, which is just to be accepted for who they are.
Mm.
And we're not okay with just being accepted with who we are because we've never experienced that. It was always a condition.
Yes.
So we choose a condition for ourselves as we grow up, and perfectionism appeals because, of course, it has perfect in it. And it has what looks like, I will never give up. Therefore, I will never give up on you, which is what we wish our parents had been, chosen us and would never give up on us. But the truth is, parents are human. And most of the time, we don't have either one or two who are completely present with us all the time, showing us what it's like. If someone just stares at you infinitely and has all the time in the world for you, very few people these days know what that feels like. So perfectionism is naturally written into the majority of the human population, but it's illusory, as we know. The best thing is to first recognize that it is not healthy, and to replace it with self-acceptance for what you are right now, no matter what your foibles are. Self-acceptance is the antidote.
Okay, and how can we kind of accept ourselves with all our bumps and bruises?
Just like that.
What do you mean?
You are.
Mhm.
You are what you are, what you are, what you are, what you are. And you are. And that's what it is. It's not a case of bestowing some sort of ephemeral love on the self or a thing. It's just looking at a thing, seeing the sky, it's blue, seeing you, you are.
Yes.
Trying to make it as simple as possible.
Okay. Okay, anything else about perfectionism?
Oh, we need to get on with it. It's like a boundary. Like, no, we need to stop that one. It's very
Yes.
limiting.
Yes.
Finish.
Okay. Because it's actually the opposite of healthy striving.
It's the opposite of many things. It's the opposite of just accepting. And if we accept the self and we practice self acceptance, we learn to accept all the things, accepting others. I mean, there's only one of us, but there's thousands of the others that we need to learn to accept. So hurry up.
But how can we accept the aspects of ourselves that we're in rejection of, these fragmented parts?
By using logic. It is there.
Yes.
And wishing it away is a child's way.
Yes.
It's not going to go away. It's the thing, it's there right now. And it has happened. It is happening. And it may be different in the future. But you can't get to it being different in the future peacefully if you don't accept that it is that way now. And if you say, I am still worthy of love, even though I am this way now, or have done that thing in the past, and you say it like that, you will eventually be accustomed to understanding that that is what it is. If you think that you wish it was different or berate yourself because you have or haven't or all that, it wastes a lot of time and energy. If you can just say, I have this thing, I am this way, I did that thing, then you can let it go and move on. And you can learn to love the thing because it is there. It is that way. And if I would say we're broken and bruised, there's nothing wrong with that. Rather be broken and bruised than simple.
Yes. But what about the aspects of ourselves that are in our subconscious mind that we don't know? We don't know.
That's why we ask ourselves questions.
Mm-hmm.
What's really happening here? What? What are you doing? What's happening here? Why did you just do that? What's going on? Did you really say that? Did you really mean to do that? How do you feel about that? Do you wish you had done something else? What do you wish would rather happen? Ask yourself those questions. No one's going to hear you. Just say the thing and then answer yourself properly. Do you wish that he had said that? Do you wish that she wouldn't do that? Do you really feel that way about yourself? Yes, you do. Wow, what are we going to do about it? Nothing, because we are bad in this way. Like, are we really, or we just, isn't that what mom said? I'm sure that's not what's really happening here. And if you can take the stance of trying to be an advocate for yourself when you're asking those questions, you will also find that you can learn to put up better boundaries if that's what you're still busy with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we don't know that, a deep questioning will reveal it.
It's almost like we're trying to build up boundaries against the aspects of ourselves that we are in rejection to.
Well, there is only the self.
Mm.
So,
So if we drop those boundaries and then we become one with these, I suppose, subconscious or shadowy aspects of ourselves, then we can actually be more integrated.
again, acceptance, I think, is a more general way to put it, rather than dropping a boundary or shadow self. As we're moving into the new energy of not needing so many celebrations around our personal discoveries, let's make it easier with just be honest with yourself, accept yourself, and give yourself maybe a little bit of what you could term as tough love. Oftentimes, the last of the things that need to go hide behind labels and need a little bit of a compassionate backhand. Just be a little tougher with yourself, like a parent, but not like someone who is berating you. Like, I think we both know that that's not what's happening here. And you must maybe just accept that in talking to yourself, of course, like this, not to someone else. That's none of your business. If you go down that route, you get a whole lot of loss. But when talking to yourself, the firmness of love, just be honest with yourself.
Okay. Okay, and there seems to be people having disagreements with their family on spiritual, political matters, etc. How can these kinds of things be resolved?
Talk about the weather.
But that's boring.
It's not your job to get along with everyone.
Mm.
If you must be next to someone by way of necessity and you would prefer to move away, make plans to do that.
Mm.
If you want someone to agree with you, you're busy with something that you don't need to be busy with. It doesn't matter if someone sees the same projection that you do. What matters is that when people are around you, they are peaceful.
Yes.
That is a good idea for this year coming ahead, because we need to focus on lots of things. We don't need extra obstacles. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. If someone is trying to convince you of something, it's also okay to smile and wave. Sometimes someone needs something from you, which is just to listen and be present, like the majority of parents are not able to be for their children. And if you can just do that, the thing that they're trying to convince you of will dissipate. It's not about the thing, it's about needing to be heard, needing to feel valuable, The masculine needs to feel needed.
Mm.
They need to be providers and have value because they contribute. The feminine needs to be a nurturer and have the hidden contribution that just adds to the comfort of living. And those things need to be fulfilled for the biological system to feel like it's in balance. Sometimes it's just easier to allow the person to feel that. It's just a game, a play, a stage. Let it play out and it will dissipate.
Mm.
Otherwise, remove yourself.
Yeah.
You
What?
have no obligation to family. The obligation is what you
Yes,
choose.
people feel intense guilt and shame about that, though.
Understandably,
Hmm.
but it's not necessary
Why is that?
because you are not responsible for someone else. Blood tie or generational tie.
But what about if it's your child and it's still a small child?
I doubt they will have spiritual debates with you.
Okay, touche. Okay, so, but why is it that we want to convince other people of our opinions? Why do we want everyone to have the same opinion as us? That would be quite a boring world, wouldn't
It would,
it?
but we want to feel like we're not wrong.
Mm,
There's obviously an aspect of doubt in the self.
mm,
If you are considered, you are happy with your own assessment of the situation. You don't need someone else to validate it because you know. If you want to converse with someone because it's entertaining to connect, then you must also be willing for the other person to feel not like you do. And then the exchange is evolutionary.
mm. Okay. Anything else about these disagreements?
In a basic sense, if a male disagrees, there is a conflictual experience. If a female disagrees, there is detachment.
Mm.
That is a general situation in the relations between the sexes at this point in time.
Yes, it seems like a contradiction.
Yes. And the subject matter is very rarely the point of
Mm.
the disagreement.
Yes. So how can, I suppose, couples then resolve there if there's an issue?
That's very broad.
Okay. But you're saying that the way that they're when there's a disagreement, the way they resolve it is the opposite. How could they then resolve something?
Communication, 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 communication.
Okay.
I need this. This would assist me.
Mm,
If the other person says, I am not willing to give you that,
mm.
a good idea is to keep going like a ping pong game. Explain why. Explain how this makes you feel, and therefore, and therefore, and therefore, and therefore.
Mm,
Always give the other person time to say what they need to say. And when you're finished speaking, say, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that? Let them finish. Don't interrupt. This is basic communication. If you find that you're not that interested in someone's opinion, then you must reevaluate your relationship. Relationships in general now are shifting because unless someone is properly assisting themselves and you in the evolution, it is better to do it with friends.
mm. Yes. Okay. Okay, and if you break up with someone, where does the love go?
Curious.
Because I suppose we still do love each other even when we do break up.
It doesn't go anywhere. If you break up with someone, again, very broad, You could break up with someone because they move and you still love them. You could break up with someone because they're a murderer. If they have a dysfunctional relationship, the people who break up, they was most likely never loved there in the first place, not for each other and not for the self. Dysfunctional relationships are an attempt to learn how to love. So an understanding of love has not yet been reached for the self or the other. So it went nowhere because it never was. If it's someone who has just moved, you will continue to have a regard for the person. It doesn't go anywhere.
Okay. Okay, and can you maybe just talk about just moving away from relationships? Is there anything else about that? It seems people it's the biggest struggle that people are dealing with, they ever seem to ever deal with. Is there anything else about relationships? With yourself, with the other?
People are afraid financially and believe that there's safety in numbers. And that is definitely a consideration. And the only way to be done with that is to weigh out pros and cons. If you have a peaceful mind because you are not having to deal with another person, you will more likely be able to manifest what you need to take care of yourself, because you will be a healthier individual who is evolving into a space of being able to manifest what they need. Recognizing that you're not happy with someone and need to move needs to result in doing that. Especially now, because there's a big wave and you want to catch it, and there's only one person on a board at a time.
Okay. Okay, and can you maybe talk about this? We don't really have electricity that much in this country anymore, it seems. What is the message? What is the message? Just to make people understand, we do have load shedding, which means we have 6 to 8, I don't know, sometimes 4 to 8 hours, with no electricity, no power in the country. What is the message for us? Is there some kind of, is this a sign, a symbol? Is it something we need to learn?
You can see the positive in load shedding, though, can't you?
Yes, no, it makes us more self-sustainable, gets us off the grid. So it's almost like future being set up, 5D almost being set up already because we are detaching ourselves from the government.
On a basic level, yes, but also we become more aware because you have to keep track. So we're learning how to regulate, self-regulate, make plans, and accept what can't currently be changed. So we have a great lesson in acceptance, which is one of the major things we have to do right now, as opposed to saying to someone, this is my boundary and I'm going to fight it. It's just recognizing that that's currently where a limit lays, and I have acceptance around that, and I'm going to adjust myself accordingly without getting angry about it. It's a forced module. You can see it like that. If that works for you, excellent. You could also see it as, in all countries, there is something that you have to put up with. In Europe, you need to be okay with being heavily policed. You have electricity all the time and you have very little crime, but you have very little freedom, really. Here, we have a lot of humor because we have to put up with things that are elementary, and we've learned to accept and make light of it. So we play with our adversaries.
But should we really accept something that's so dysfunctional, though? It shouldn't become the norm.
Would you prefer to stay in resistance? Is that fun?
Not at all.
It's a time waster. Instead, throw off your school clothes, run outside and play because it's load shedding. How good is it to use the excuse, I can't do X, Y, Z because load shedding? Or to look at your neighbor and go, load shedding. All of a sudden we have unity. we have a common base of suffering and entertainment. We have so many new inventions as a result of it. We have people making plans. And because if we consider that the people in charge aren't playing by the rules, why should we? Therefore, the anarchy that results is a people learning to part govern themselves and make plans because no one is coming to save you.
Yes.
We must make a plan ourselves, and then we help each other out because the person who's supposed to be doing it is clearly not. We become self-sufficient. We become creative, inventive, stronger.
Yes, but it does create more connection because even last night I was sitting with my mom in the courtyard for hours and we were laughing and joking and talking where we wouldn't have if the power was on.
Exactly.
Yes, okay. But people are talking about a grid collapse in South Africa. Is this a possibility? Because I suppose having electricity now and then is great, but not having anything at all is another thing.
It's always good to consider all possibilities. You can choose what timeline you wish to go on. Right now, it's more valuable than ever because of the awareness that people have. The more your comfort dissolves, the more you wake up, the more you need to take responsibility, which is scarier for some, which is why they prefer to stay in suffering because it's easier. And a lot of people don't want to wake up because when they do, they know how much work it involves.
Yep. Okay, it's not comfortable.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we need to prepare for something? Is this something that we should do just to get ourselves out of resistance, or what is the best action to take?
How would you prepare for a grid collapse? Where are you going to advertise if you don't have the internet? How do you prepare for no internet and no electricity? How?
I don't know. People are talking about stockpiling. People are talking about moving out of the cities. Um,
That has been a conversation since cities first were built. There is always an imminent collapse of something.
yes.
That is evolution. If it does happen, there is very little you're going to be able to do about
Yes,
it.
and I suppose security would be the biggest issue then, not actually where's our next meal going to come from.
A lot of people will just end.
What does that mean?
They'll just die rather, which is, it may sound harsh, but it's really not. It would be easier to just wait until something better comes along in the next evolution. If you really wanted to prepare for something like that, we had a practice run in 2020 when everyone did their gardens. But if there is no electricity, a lot more besides the food system will collapse. The idea of being able to hold records of your property or your ID or
Money.
your car and petrol and taking care of medical situations, it will all collapse. And chances are that will not happen.
It seems very drastic, extreme.
And also quite boring because all it will be is continual mayhem. At least in 2020, there was variety.
Okay. Okay, so it's not something that we need to be worried about.
You can worry about whatever you want to, depends on what your point is. If you would like rapid evolution, do worry about it, get entrenched in it, and make plans for doom and gloom. It is a good hot housing for personal evolution.
Okay. So thoughts create reality. We're creating it as we're going, right? So
Indeed.
okay.
But remember, even if you create a paradigm that is extreme and real to you, it will eventually collapse into the collective reality because it is built out of fear. So its frequency is low and not strong. And eventually you will come back to the collective consciousness, which is not in the mood for collapse.
I don't understand that. What does that mean?
You can't remain in a space of pioneering doom and gloom.
Yes.
your frequency will eventually be dissolved into a higher frequency,
Mm.
which is the stronger one that the collective consciousness holds.
Mm.
You cannot have an outpost of negativity for long.
Yes. Okay, so you're saying that the current collective energies are not actually a match to that kind of doom, that level of doom and gloom, because the
Correct.
collective consciousness is higher, the
Correct.
frequency is higher. Okay, I understand.
Besides being higher, the mass collective consciousness is one of cheerful survival. It is not attuned to doom and gloom on a mass scale.
Yes. Okay. Okay, can you please talk about if there's any information or guidance on 2023, how can people best prepare themselves?
Shed everything that needs to go now, because there's a lot more coming, and it's an energy of joy. It is your capacity to experience the maximum amount of joy that is going to dictate the year for you.
Yeah.
It's hard to prioritize joy for a lot of people. It doesn't make sense. It's counterproductive in their mind. It is the enemy of responsible progress, especially if they've not experienced it before. And it's something that is frowned upon in their programming.
Mm.
The joy is expansive and magnifying and very essential.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Anything else practically people can do?
Focus on the things that you have done in the past that have resulted in the successes you have now. If you're concerned that you won't be able to do X, Y, and Z, if you have done it before, remember that, celebrate that, and remind yourself that you are capable of anything if you focus on it outside a space of fear. If you're in a fear space, very little is going to go right. Using basic mantras like everything is always working out for me might assist some. Everything is going to be fine. It always works out. And how old are you now? That's how many years everything has always been working out for you.
The proof is there.
Even if you say, yes, but this and this and this happened, always look for how it served you. If you didn't have this, then you wouldn't have had this. You wouldn't have met that person. You wouldn't have done this thing. You wouldn't be who you are now. All of those things. You have to always search for the positive, as if you were parenting yourself again, saying, that's not really happening. This is what's happening. And this is what's happening is mostly a positive thing. And to challenge yourself to always find the silver lining in everything, because it is absolutely 100% always there, because that is the nature of the polarity in this universe.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. Okay, anything else that would be able to help humanity at the moment?
You must release the power that fear has. It's so hard when you're in a space of fear, the active vibration of fear, to proceed. You have to find a way for a default ejection of fear. If when you're in a good space, you need to put down markers for yourself. So when you regress into a fear space, you remember what it's like to not be there. Like in the movie Inception, there was little markers to remind yourself you're still dreaming. In a way, when we are in a fear space, we are rather dreaming, and we are immobile.
Mm.
Laughter is usually a good thing. Things that have no consequence, like nature, animals, sun on your face, music, not sensual distractions. Those don't help. Nature and laughing, children,
Animals, cats.
always the cats, dancing, breathing, swimming. Put yourself into a space of survival, like swim in the ocean, go hike up a mountain, give yourself a literal better perspective. Remove yourself from your current environment. Watch a movie about people living in the Himalayas, anything that will remove you completely from your environment for a reset, and then talk to yourself in a calm and loving manner in affirmations. I'm going to be fine. Everything is always working out for me, etc. Try not to do too much the universe this and the universe that, because now we're in a space where that is separation speak. We have moved beyond that. It served for a time, but now it is integrated. Therefore, when you looked outside for the universe to action things, you now know that it was always there in your own capacity to do the thing that needs to be done. That is what self-belief and self-acceptance is, which eventually translates into the self-love. But even that is elementary now. There's no time for that. Be present as much as possible in the now and know that you have got your back.
Yes, very beautiful. Is there anything else about kind of internal inner technologies, how we can tap more into the kind of power of the heart?
When you're not rushed and you are calm and checking in with yourself, especially also in nature, again, ask yourself the questions. What's happening here? And interrogate yourself. What is the first thing that comes to mind? Why are you being like that? Because I'm an idiot. Are you really an idiot, or did someone else say that to you? No, it's because I'm an idiot. Why are you an idiot? What did you do? What happened? Oh, because I said this and this. Why did you say that? Because I'm terrible with people. Okay, but why are you terrible with people? Because I think they're going to hate me. Well, do they hate you? Yes, they hate me. So everyone hates you. Everyone hates you. Is that what's happening? Just follow it. Keep on going until you don't hold back. Get down to the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, and there you will find the reality of what's happening.
It's always self-worth, though, isn't it?
Self-acceptance.
But I suppose a lack of self-worth, which, then it turns into self-acceptance.
If we think we need to have worth, it is conditional. Acceptance is not conditional. It just is.
Yes.
So acceptance of all things is the way it is. If you want to add on self-love and self-worth and self-regard and self-respect, they're all conditions that we place upon ourselves in order to measure something that doesn't even need to be measured. You can use it when you're trying to interrogate yourself to get to the point of, how am I measuring myself? But if you get to the point of stopping measuring yourself and just accept yourself, you don't need to measure, you don't need to have worth, you just are. If you say, I now have self-worth, I now love myself. So, okay, I now do, but maybe in the future I won't. Or why do you love yourself now? Because I am good to people. Okay, so that's a condition. No, because I am kind. Okay, also a condition. No, because I have integrated my shadow self. Also a condition. I am. That's acceptance. It is the way it is. It's logic. It's dispassionate, logical understanding that it is. It just is. It always is. It is. It is acceptance. As soon as you add on all those other things. The journey of self-love, oh my goodness, is very long. You don't need to go on it. You can just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am.
Mm.
Even better, forget about the I.
Mm.
Just be like,
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else today for anyone else? Is there any question I could have asked that I didn't ask?
What is the nature of reality?
I'm not really interested in that. Or is there a reason why the cat had to be here today? Stretched out.
Mm.
Is it a reminder of something?
Just accept the cat is there.
And I suppose the cat accepted the cat's there.
Mm.
Cats accept themselves, don't they?
Constantly.
So that could be the message.
Mm.
Okay. So anything else for anyone else, or are we complete today?
All good.